until I was in about 7th grade. I just assumed he worked for the FBI or CIA because I had no idea what the hell he did.
He was just out of the country a lot.
Yeah, my friends would ask, "What's your dad do?" I was like, I don't know. Yeah.
Hello folks, in this episode we will be discussing, is made in the US even possible? It's kind of the overarching theme of this entire process of we're trying to talk to folks that want to make a product either for the first time or move their business into the United States, and that is primarily what we're covering. So we thought we'd start, is it possible today? You're in the trenches all day, every day, you've been doing this for a long time, and we want to explain to people how things are made in the US, and kind of, I think for this episode in particular, look at why it's a little harder, especially in the beginning, and how to navigate that.
Yeah, not to age you a little bit, but I mean, you were around during the Michigan, Detroit, automobile manufacturing mecca, and it's gone, and that's what everybody thinks about is, manufacturing's gone in the United States. When in fact, I think there's a true renaissance of manufacturing re-emerging in the United States. We're starting to build our infrastructure, and it's spotty. We can't do everything.
It's very industry specific.
Very industry specific, and it is across the entire globe, though. So it's not. You're not going to go to China for everything. You're not going to go to India for everything. You're not going to be in the United States for everything. So I think it's worth at least investigating, because the benefits of manufacturing in the United States, if it is plausible, heavily outweighs doing work overseas, just from a simplicity standpoint.
So I think for a lot of people, whenever they think about making things in the United States, price is the number one hurdle that they would in their mind think of without doing any investigation. And there's a lot of things that go onto that landed price. At the end of the day, you get a quote, but that's not necessarily everything. Here's the cost of the part.
Right.
It's not necessarily shipping. It's not necessarily, hey, you have to pay for this up front, and then you have all this capital tied up overseas that then has to get shipped on a boat. What are some examples of hidden cost beyond the quote of the part? Forget tooling, forget design, forget all the other stuff that we'll get into in other episodes, but just you get a price from a manufacturer. That's not the bottom line at the end of the day.
Right. Talking tangible costs. Mm-hmm. I mean, shipping right off the bat. It's cost $6,000 for a container to get from China to wherever you are in the United States.
And that's not the only option. We could also do air freight, which would be at lower volumes.
Who knows?
And a much higher cost.
Yeah. Ask me that day. I could probably find a price for you, but
right.
That fluctuates so much. It could be anywhere between $20,000 to $100,000 depending on what you're shipping. So you've got shipping costs. Normally now they're starting to put tariffs into the part price, but sometimes it's all these are all questions you have to ask and you have to be aware of when you get that part quote from wherever you're getting it from.
Are there also fees from a boat comes over, plane lands, then it has to go through customs and ports, and somebody has to get paid to unload it? Yeah,
that'll all be included in the tariff cost. They usually kind of bundle that all together. You don't know exactly what you're paying all the time, but it's about 30 to 35% depending on where it's coming from on top of that part cost.
And then you have to get it from the port to wherever your location is.
And then you hope it's packaged correctly, otherwise you got to repack. That's a cost that you're paying somebody to do, or you're doing it yourself at 2 o'clock in the morning when you receive it and you've got an order to get out the next day.
Right.
Sleep. Yeah, I wish people would pay me in sleep. I'd take that. But yeah, there's so many hidden costs and that goes for everything across the board. It could happen. I mean, even in the United States, you've got to ask those questions. You got to go through the exercise. What is shipping costs from Texas to California, wherever you're shipping from?
And this could also come down to what country or what location are the raw materials getting sourced from?
Yeah,
and you're faced with it anyway.
And talking tariffs. Kind of same thing with air shipment. I don't know what they're going to be tomorrow. They've kind of leveled out, but you get a new administration here in a couple of years, and they might change it all up again. So maybe they wipe them out, or
And that's the thing, if you're going to build a long-term business, that you run the risk of every 4 years of things cycling through and getting pretty crazy.
you're going to have consistency here. Prices will fluctuate. You've got inflation, you've got year-over-year costs, but it's going to be consistent, and you can at least have that conversation face-to-face with the manufacturer in the United States, rather than, unless you're willing to go to China, a couple times a year, which highly recommended if you're doing business over there.
Which is another cost. So it's like,
Yeah.
do you pick somebody that's made in the United States that you can go visit your sales rep, or he can easily come, or she can come visit you and work out all the bugs in the design phase and the prototyping phase, and then actually be on the floor when your parts are being processed for the first time?
Right. Yeah, and
to me, that's invaluable. That has been invaluable.
it's invaluable, and just the time saved with being on the floor when that's happening, telling the manufacturer yes or no right then when it's being produced, so they can continue production at that point in time. You're saving a week minimum.
I mean, we've been together on the floor of the factory, changing
A lot.
all kinds of variables that goes into it. And again, we want to be real careful that we're not just skimming over stuff. If we do, it's because I know that we're going to talk about it at a later time, and certainly that's going to be part of the process. But yeah, being able to troubleshoot right then and there. We have a problem. You're 8 hours away. I've been able to drive and be on the plant floor and you guys, that gives you a day or two to kind of get things ready. So when I do get there, it's such a shorthand.
Yeah, we're hitting the floor running. I mean, we've had times I'm on the floor. When you walk in the door, you're straight to the press, and we're working out any kinks.
And this kind of goes into, there's all these decisions that I think if you're just starting out, you don't know all the questions to ask, from the design phase all the way to the finished part, and then subsequent orders after that, when things still continue to change as you're learning how parts are performing out in the field.
Yeah, and as much as we're trying to create a handbook right now, it's so project specific that every project's going to have different questions to ask.
Right.
Going through it right now, you don't think of everything because it's a new product.
Right.
So you've got your bullet points that your standard questions that you get answered, and then you hope that handles 90% of it.
If people were to say that, or have the misconception or the feeling that getting stuff made in the U.S. is hard versus getting stuff in China is hard, like for me it would be, let's just say any overseas, there could be holidays, there could be troubles getting in and out of the country, there could be language barriers, even though there's translators. I mean, how many times have you and I misspoke to each other? I didn't mean that, or you didn't, there's misinterpretations. We're both basically grew up around the same time. We're very similar personalities. We live only a few hours away from each other, and we still have a language barrier because everything could be misinterpreted.
Yeah, and what do you do?
Yeah.
When we do have you pick up the phone and you call me.
Yeah, but if you to pick up the phone to somebody overseas, you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're likely talking to your person through an interpreter, or you're talking to them
broken English
directly, and there's wide gaps of misinformation that could happen.
Yeah, and you could be having a completely different conversation than the person on the other end of that phone's having.
Right.
So, and communication is probably the most important thing in manufacturing. Email's great. I love email. It's good to follow up with, to document, to have action items, but picking up the phone call, being on site with the producer you're going to get 2 weeks worth of emails done in an hour if you just go there and get it done. So, and to back up, you said people perceive U.S. manufacturing hard, maybe being difficult, or China. It's all difficult. So let's.
How about this? At any factory, no matter where its location, there's injection molding machines or whatever machines that may be used in the process of whatever is trying to get made. that piece of equipment has 24 hours of a day. It doesn't care what it's making. But I guess where I'm going with this is you are one person that is buying time on that machine, no matter where that's at, overseas, seasonal concerns. Is it even possible to make that? So it's like to me, there's no difference between getting something made overseas versus now, just because of the time situation. Like, that's always going to be the case. So my point is, if I'm getting something made in the US and I have a US manufacturing saying, no, we can't take that on, it's because those machines are booked out already.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of what I was talking about, the infrastructure. We're building the infrastructure. It's a good point. I always get asked when I'm quoting something out, what's your capacity? I don't think anybody asks that in China, because China will just figure it out. Either they'll run it or they'll have somebody next door run it. But in the US, the infrastructure's been diminished so much that you have to ask that. Are you going to have enough capacity for me to run this? What's your plan to build out capacity when we grow? And if you are quoting in the US, please ask that question. It's important. You don't want to get in there and all of a sudden they're 10% over capacity. Somebody's getting pushed to the end of the line. And it's probably the new guy.
Yeah. and there's also things that we could look at. What's your capacity for your big presses, for your medium presses, for your small presses, which may help decide, is this going to be a mold that has 2-shot, 3-shot, which means, hey, there's 2 or 3 parts being made every single time a press opens and closes, versus if you don't think you're going to have the volume, or you can manage with smaller volume and you could go to a smaller press that is going to naturally allow for more time. Not only are you going to get your parts made, but the tool is likely to be less.
Yeah, and then you can go down the avenue too of contractual agreements where they're going to buy a press for you, and it's not your press, but they're making the investment. You better hit those volumes though that you're saying. Don't overstate. Don't overstate what you're.
And I would think a good salesman is not going to let you. Yeah, this is a new company. They have 0 sales at this point. Sure, they have a Kickstarter, or sure they have an investment, or sure they've prototyped and sold a few hundred or a few thousand units, but really don't know at scale yet.
Yeah.
Like, and you're not going to buy a full injection molding machine based off a new person.
No. You're going to have to show, history of sales, expectation, a forecast going forward, and POs that are supporting that forecast. So you're going to have to, there's a lot that goes into that. And sometimes it works, but also you don't know what your sales are going to be till they go out the door. So just be careful if you go down that avenue.
So let's talk about maybe any competitive advantages you may have as a U.S. manufacturer. Let's say I'm somebody that needs a part made. I am looking at option B overseas, or what are some things that you could do to maybe offset some of the perceived cost or whatever hesitations you might have?
Yeah, design right up front. I would look at how we can save money on design. I always tell people it's easier to engineer $1 out of a part than it is to pinch pennies at the end. And you may not get that from a Chinese supplier. They're going to take the part as is. They're going to look at it. Can we manufacture it? If they need to make some tweaks, they'll tell you. In the US, you'll probably get a little bit more hands-on from your engineers or sales engineer, and they'll talk through. And if you give them a target price, they're going to look at everything surrounding that part. Part design, material selection. So they're going to be a lot more hands-on. They're going to dig in with their suppliers and try to find a way to.
Because they are trying to get the business.
Yeah, I'd rather sell a 100,000 $2 parts than, $5, $10 parts. So, we know cost is important. You need to make your margins. We need to make our margins too. How do we get you there though? And that's what you'll get from the United States. You're going to get that relationship, and they're going to go to bat for you.
Some I've never really considered. I mean, because this has just been so easy over the last few years, what you guys do. And we're fixing to introduce kind of us and the history and why we're here. We just wanted to start off with a question, but overseas, is it common for somebody to have a long-term sales rep, or is that more turnover?
Yeah, you'll get brokers in the U.S., which are salesmen, and you'll have salesmen overseas, but it's not the same. It's more of an inside sales rep that you'd get in the United States. In the United States, you're going to have an outside sales rep, you're going to have a sales engineer, you're going to have an inside sales rep, you're going to have customer service, you're going to have everything revolving around you, all of that support for their customers.
And these people may not be in the factory at all.
Which ones?
Well, any of them could not be. Like
Yeah.
if you had a broker in particular here.
Or you could have a broker that's never seen that place. And that's okay sometimes. Sometimes if they're making good parts, good for that broker. But
I couldn't, from being on this side of it, I could not.
no, I would want somebody that's very familiar with the ins and outs of. I go vet out the people that I'm selling for. I'm not going to go sell for anybody.
Well, and you've also vetted out our suppliers and people in the lab and things like that. I mean, at every point, you've been the point of contact through a vast network. So let's dive into who you are, Calvin Jacobson from Air Rep Representatives.
Yep, Air Representatives. We're based out of Kansas City. I've been in plastics for about just over 10 years now. Came out of college, and
I think it's also important to say that you are second generation. You may have been in plastics the last 10 years, but it's always been in your life.
yeah. So Dad started a distribution company, a broker, if you will. But he was kind of a pioneer in the plastics industry, bringing, actually kind of going the other direction of what we're talking about. He brought in a lot of overseas material. He was one of the first to bring in engineered materials from Asia. A lot of people didn't do it back then. He started in the early 90s. It was kind of looked down upon, and he brought in, it was him and really GE. They were kind of going at it. They were the first two to start bringing in engineered materials from overseas. So he started doing that. He stayed in the engineered materials, didn't get into commodities too much, but that's what I grew up knowing. I can tell you, till I was in about 7th grade, I just assumed he worked for the FBI or CIA because I had no idea what the hell he did.
He was just out of the country.
My friends would ask, "What's your dad do?" I was like, I don't know, man. He's does stuff in Asia. So who knows? Maybe that's what he was doing. Maybe he was in the CIA, and I'm just the idiot to continue on thinking he did plastics.
I love it.
But yeah, so second generation, we're an OEM, but we also do contract sales for injection molding, really anything plastics related, extrusion, a little bit of thermoforming. So we find good suppliers, and we also do a lot of design and engineering for our customers.
And then you, aside from helping other people get stuff made, you guys have your own entity that also sells.
Yep. So when I said OEM, that's original equipment manufacturer. So we design and sell parts, produce parts for the airlines for the in-flight service. So we do, if you've been on a major airline flight that's getting some food served to you, there's a really high chance that those are our trays that the food's being served on.
The last flight, I was flying back from Florida, and they had a tray, and they were over me, and I looked and I saw your logo.
Yeah.
That was fun to see.
It's fun, man. It's cool seeing it on there, and I like talking to the flight attendants about it and letting them know if we're landing in Kansas City. If I always ask them if they're KC based, and just want to let them know that the trays and the drawers that they use are from Kansas City, their hometown. So that's cool. It's fun.
Again, you work with the tooling, you work with the vendors. There's nothing that you haven't had a direct hand in anything that we've had made with you guys, and through our relationship over the years. I know that you also do that with other people. It's a very extensive network that you have to not only have but maintain.
Yeah, well, plastics is a small world anyway. I mean, it's crazy how small it is. It's like the Kevin Bacon, but even worse. It's like, oh, you know, so-and-so, yeah, that's my colleague, or I worked with them at my last job. I mean, it's crazy. And then gets even smaller. Being out of Kansas City, Pitt State is like the number 2. There's only a handful of plastic degrees in the United States that colleges offer. One of them's just south of Kansas City. So, I mean, even smaller. It's like, hey, you went to Pitt State, you know. But yeah, it's growing that network is probably more so important than anything else we do. It's creating that network, maintaining that network, and just staying in touch with people, because you never know when you're going to need somebody's services and you want them to pick up the call.
Or just to bounce an idea off, or to refer business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
You've also been on the side where you've seen companies really hit a home run early on and maintain that. You've also seen companies that would likely be a great idea that have failed for any number of reasons. So I think the other thing that you're going to be able to bring to this is just the experience in seeing probably time after time where a company is going to fail and some of the things that people will do to succeed. And I think those would be a little bit less, success points could come from almost anywhere, but I would think that the failure points would be almost, you know, man, please watch out for this, please watch out for that.
Yeah, it's hardly ever regarding the part or design or the product. It's always on the back end. Are you selling? Are you marketing? Are you doing everything you should be on the back end? Everybody gets so focused in on the part and their product that they're designing, they forget to do the other things. So it's like I said, it's very rarely about the product. It's what do you do after you get the product? And you should be doing that before you even have parts in hand. You should be selling this stuff, selling the idea, getting people educated about what you're bringing to the market.
And I just want to emphasize that everything that you're bringing to the table, it's based off of, you said it before, you're in the trenches, you do this all day, every day, nights, weekends, holidays. I've talked to you at every point as a client of yours. But it's also, while you have gone to college, you have a lot of discussions where it could be theory-based. Pretty much everything that we're going to discuss throughout this project is going to be things you have seen or deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you what chapter this stuff's found in the textbooks, but it's all real life experience, and I think that's far more valuable than something you'd read in a textbook.
For sure. And as far as my side goes,
still go to college, kids, but
stay in school.
Yeah.
So, as you can tell, I am one of Calvin's clients. I work for a company that you manufacture for us and help us with. I am part of a much larger team within that company, but you and I, we kind of found each other. We were looking to move our stuff over from China to be solely USA made, and over the course of a few months, several years ago, we got there, and then we've continued to bring on new products with your help. So not only have we gone from a reshoring situation, but we've continued to develop products almost as if we were a startup.
Yeah.
Because you have to go through each one of those steps over and over again. Now, of course, it gets shorter and easier, but that's kind of where we come. Obviously, and I think you'll see once we kind of get going here. I mean, Calvin and I have been good friends for a long time, both in and out of work. So that kind of comes into play. And this project was born from the idea that manufacturing is very hard. Running a business is even harder, and we want to see U.S. based manufacturing not only thrive, but I'm really into making sure that small businesses get every single leg up that they possibly can. And so this podcast is not going to be easy listening for Joe Blow driving down commuting that never wants to build anything. But if you're an inventor, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an influencer that already has a large audience and they're wanting to buy stuff from you, oftentimes you don't even know where the starting point is or what questions to ask. And that's why each episode is going to basically discuss one key point, and hopefully by the end you have enough context to be able to call up or find somebody like Calvin or Calvin himself if you choose, and at least be able to get much further downstream than you would have if you're just starting. I don't know anything, I need you to explain everything to me.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be real hard for somebody to have time to do that. But here we go.
Yeah, and it can be extremely intimidating, overwhelming.
A lot of acronyms, a lot of shorthand.
Oh yeah, the language, you got to get used to that.
And that's kind of my role here is I as the host, I am trying to act on your behalf of here's what questions I had along the way, here's what I wished I would have asked. I'm trying to be your voice on the other side to the manufacturer. And so I also want to make sure that we're not here to only push USA manufacturing. I'm hoping sometimes that we discuss things where it may not be the best idea. We're always trying to keep the best idea at the interest and at the forefront of each one of these episodes. We're just trying to give you the knowledge on how to make some of those decisions. But yeah, we're just trying to explain the process in which all of this happens. And what I'm hoping is for you to tell some old stories and examples of basically warning signs or things to really strive for as you're going through the process.
Yeah, just questions to ask. If you can just have the basis of what to ask and what to look out for to, like you said, avoid, or if they're answering correctly, maybe you found your diamond in the rough. So happy to help with anybody that may want to start down this journey. It's a long road. But man, it is so much fun. I will say it sucks at times. It is tough. It's difficult. It's time consuming. You don't sleep. You're wondering what's going on. Is this stuff getting done? You don't have hands on. It's out of your control now. And hopefully you have somebody to call that's going to be able to give you updates when you need them.
From my perspective of it, seeing a part that you had an idea, it got put on paper, this whole long process of getting that and watching those parts get printed for the first time and then shipped to your warehouse, it's unbelievable. Yeah. It's so satisfying. And I think those two statements perfectly encapsulate what we want to do. This is not a motivational podcast. We're not going to rah-rah you. Like, we're going to talk real world, almost not in a discouraging way, but you're going to be like, man, is this even for me? And like, that's my goal. I don't want anybody to spend $1 million and go do something that's inherently going to fail because they didn't have this type of information. Like if we can save you that heartache or at least paint the realistic picture of what this looks like day to day, and somebody decides, maybe I'll just hand this off. Maybe there's other options like franchising an idea or getting a royalty off of an idea.
Merch.
Just sell your idea.
If you can just sell merchandise, or and if you got the audience that you can do that with, go for it.
Yeah. So, but that's what we're gonna do. So I promise we're gonna talk very real. We hopefully it's not going to be too dry, but this is inherently a just like in the weeds kind of podcast.
Yeah. It's not something. I know my wife doesn't like hearing about it, but although I will, Nick, she's getting on the bandwagon. She's got an idea. She does.
Well, I guess we'll explore that.
Yeah.
So basically, USA manufacturing is not dead. In fact, it's having a renaissance. Mm-hmm. It is totally possible. And by front loading some of the knowledge, I think you may find a shortcut. And I want to be real careful with the term shortcuts. This is not a hack podcast. This is not but going to the table more fully aware of what's out there without having to go get a degree in it.
Shortcuts meaning not making the mistakes that we've seen being made.
So better questions, better answers, more thorough answers so you can make better decisions, because everything you do in the beginning is going to exponentially compound on the back end, whether that's how much you're paying for a part, whether that's a manufacturer issue, whether it's a reliability issue on the part itself, all that's really affected early on. And I think as you go through this process, you're going to see we spend a lot of time on the front end of things. So in the next episode, we will be discussing when a great idea actually may not be the best part to make. We'll see you then.